Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching Samaa News. Here are today's headlines. The Trump administration has said that it has paused all immigration applications, including green card and US citizenship processing, filed by immigrants from 19 non-European countries, citing concerns over national security and public safety. The pause applies to people from 19 countries that were already subjected to a partial travel ban in June, placing further restrictions on immigration, a core feature of US President Donald Trump's political platform. The list of countries includes Afghanistan and Somalia. Federal authorities in the United States have launched a new immigration crackdown in New Orleans, targeting people living in the city illegally. Homeland Security says the focus is on individuals with serious criminal arrests, including armed robbery and home invasion. President Trump says the National Guard will deploy to the city within weeks as part of his broader push to expand mass deportation operations across major US cities. Meanwhile, US authorities have charged an Afghan man in Texas with threatening to build a bomb and carry out a suicide attack, as the Trump administration toughens its stance on Afghan migrants following a deadly shooting. According to the Justice Department, 30-year-old Mohammed Dawood Alokose of Fort Worth allegedly made the threats in a video posted on TikTok, X, and Facebook on November 23rd. In the footage, he is accused of praising the Taliban and vowing to launch a suicide attack against Americans. Russia and the US have not reached a compromise on a possible peace deal to end the war in Ukraine after a 5-hour Kremlin meeting between President Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump's top envoys. The Kremlin said talks in Moscow between Putin and Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner went past midnight. Afterward, Putin's top foreign policy aide, Yuri Ushakov, said compromises have not yet been found. He told reporters at a briefing in the Kremlin that Putin reacted negatively to some US proposals. The European Commission has outlined 2 options to supply Ukraine with 90 billion euros over the next 2 years, either using frozen Russian state assets or borrowing on global markets. Brussels is pushing for a reparations loan, but Belgium, which holds most of the assets, says its concerns remain unresolved. Ursula von der Leyen insists the plan raises pressure on Moscow and has broad support. NATO foreign ministers opened a high-stakes meeting in Brussels focused on the Ukraine war and defence issues, but without US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. His absence is highly unusual for a key transatlantic gathering, with Deputy Secretary Christopher Landau standing in for Washington instead. Addressing the gathering, Secretary-General Mark Rutte urged allies to speed up contributions to the Pearl programme, saying faster deliveries are essential to provide Ukraine with the equipment it needs now and to deter future aggression. Israeli forensic services have claimed that remains handed over by Hamas are not those of the last 2 hostages in Gaza. Hamas handed over remains described by the Red Cross as those of one of the last 2 deceased hostages still in Gaza, in line with commitments made under a US-backed October ceasefire deal. Israeli forces said they sent for forensic testing the remains they described as findings. Former EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini and 2 others have been formally accused of procurement fraud and corruption, conflict of interest, and violation of professional secrecy. The European Public Prosecutor's Office said the 3 individuals were detained on Tuesday as part of an EU fraud investigation and have now been released while the investigation is ongoing, adding they were not considered a flight risk. However, it said all persons are presumed innocent until proven guilty by the competent Belgian courts of law. The Indian government has scrapped an order to smartphone makers to preload a state-run cybersecurity app on all new devices after an outcry from politicians, privacy advocates and global tech companies over surveillance fears. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government had privately told companies including Apple, Samsung and Xiaomi on November 28th to preload new phones with an app that cannot be deleted called Sanchar Sathi within 90 days. India's Communications Ministry said that the government has decided not to make the pre-installation mandatory for mobile manufacturers. The number of people killed by floods and landslides on Indonesia's Sumatra island has risen to 708 as authorities rushed to repair infrastructure and deliver aid to cut-off areas. The disaster agency said in a press conference that 708 people have been killed since last week, a figure lower than the 753 reported on its website earlier in the day. Close to 900 people have been killed in floods and landslides that have wreaked havoc in Indonesia, and which follow months of adverse and deadly weather in Southeast Asia. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.samaa.tv. Thank you for watching Samaa News.